So let's talk a little bit more about this energy molecule, ATP. So how much ATP we have at any given time is going to be our limiting factor on how active we can be. If we don't have enough ATP, then we can't use it to make mechanical energy. We can't convert it to mechanical energy. So our activity is limited based on how much we have, and that depends on how fast our cells can take the chemicals from the nutrients we've eaten and produce ATP. So our cells are producing ATP, and how fast they can do that is our limiting factor. And this is especially true when we are talking about things like certain exercises and high intensity. We can't do sprints forever. Eventually we run out of ATP for that system, and so we can't do those forever. But ATP is the power source. It's the energy molecule. It stands for adenosine triphosphate, and it's basically the energy currency that our body needs. And we get that, again, potential energy from the molecules that we ingest, and then we're able to use those molecules to make the ATP. We have energy stored in the bonds of ATP. And at any given time, if you're just sitting there, your body has about 80 to 100 grams of ATP. And so if you were to suddenly just get up and start sprinting, you would run through that very quickly. It wouldn't last for a long time. And so you need to replenish it. Your body needs to make more. And it's our cells that do that. So when we look at the actual molecular structure of adenosine triphosphate, you can see there's an adenosine group. And then there's 3 phosphate groups that are attached to that. And it's these bonds in between the phosphate groups that have that potential energy. And so when we break those bonds, that's what's going to give off the energy. We can use the nutrients that we eat, glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. Our cells use that to make the ATP. So these phosphate groups have a negative charge innately on them, and you can see that here. And this makes them vulnerable to hydrolysis. And remember, adding water is going to break bonds. So they are ready to be broken. And this is going to give us the energy. When those are broken, it's going to release the energy that we need, or our cells need, to do their job. When the energy is released, when the bonds are broken, a side product is heat. So heat is also given off when those bonds are broken. So how do we harness the energy from ATP? And it really does come from this last phosphate group. And so this is just to kind of reiterate that if you have an ATP molecule, it's the adenosine with the 3 phosphates, and you break it down, so you use it. When that happens, the energy is released when that bond is broken. And so the example here in this box is that, like a battery is used to provide energy, the energy from the ATP can be used to do the cell's work. Contract muscles if it's a muscle cell, transport compounds, make things if it's a cell that needs to make molecules and things like that. Now, in order to make ATP, which is what our cells are doing to have plenty of energy available, it actually requires some energy. So it requires energy to make that bond. And so like when a battery, like a car battery, needs energy from an outlet to get recharged, is exactly it's similar to what's going on here. So it's going to take energy in order to make that ATP. So how we can transfer energy, remember, energy is not created or destroyed, it's just transferred from one form to another. So there's a couple of terms that you should be familiar with. Anabolic reactions are going to be reactions that build up something. And so that's going to require ATP. So when we are making, if you notice all of these elements here, when we're making a more compound molecule, so we're forming bonds. So in this case, this would be a polypeptide, but when we're making a polymer, it's going to require energy to make these bonds. So we're bonding these molecules together. And so that requires ATP. Catabolic processes actually break down things. And so this is where you take a polymer and you're going to break it down into its monomer form. And that actually gives us ATP. So we can use these monomers, the cells use these monomers to make ATP. And so that process is catabolism or catabolic. And so we can move energy around by making or creating or destroying or breaking bonds.